Orangutans never cease to amaze Carmelellano with their sophisticated mind, extraordinary learning ability, and their sensitivity.
That intelligence that orangutans have, to practically put them very even with respect to humans, right? Their ability to express themselves, their ability to understand the environment, to understand us, and also to express their feelings.
For this reason, this Bilbao veterinarian considers that not respecting orangutans is almost like not respecting ourselves due to the closeness between these primates and our own species. But the destruction of the ecosystem that orangutans inhabit has seriously jeopardized their survival and that of other unique species in the Bukit Baka Bukit Raya National Park on the Indonesian island of Borneo.
It wasn't just the problem of species trafficking, the problem of wildlife trafficking, but also the great problem of habitat loss, of how forests are shrinking and declining due to the expansion of agricultural land, especially for oil palms. I realized that to work on the conservation of these species wasn't just rescuing these animals, but above all, the protection of their environment, their habitat, had to be dealt with.
Carmelellano and the International Animal Rescue Foundation Indonesia, which she founded in 2006 and has led since then, work to preserve this ecosystem and the great apes that inhabit it. And it was clear from the beginning that having the collaboration of the communities that live near that area was key in preserving the environment.
I think it's important to understand that the problem of biodiversity, the problem of animals, isn't really with the animals. The problem is with humans. So if we can't work with humans, understand the problem, it's impossible to tackle the problem of biodiversity. It's impossible to conserve biodiversity if we don't understand the root problem.
For this reason, and although in its beginnings this foundation was born with the idea of rescuing endangered orangutans and reintroducing them later into their environment, with time it has become a more complex and ambitious project that involves the protection of all their ecosystem.
In the end, rescuing an orangutan or rescuing a primate is the last measure. That's because everything else has failed. If we fail to protect their environment, if we fail to protect their habitat, those animals will end up having to be rescued. When an animal needs to be rescued, that means that everything else has failed, and the rescue will need a greater effort. Rescue, recovery, taking them back to nature. It's a very expensive process. It's a very long process, and it has to be avoided as much as possible.
To achieve this, they develop long-term conservation strategies, empowering the local population of this region through programs to support employment, health and education, to prevent its inhabitants from engaging in illegal logging, because they have no other way of life to subsist on.
I always say that to rescue the orangutan, we have to rescue the people first. And that's the reality. It's important that we think about how we can make sure that the communities, the people who live around the orangutan's habitat, can have access to the most basic resources. And then later on, we can focus our work on the biodiversity itself and the animals. But first, we have to think about the humans.
The work promoted by IAR Indonesia to protect the valuable ecosystem that these great apes of Borneo inhabit has earned it the Worldwide Award for Biodiversity Conservation, but its founder and director insists that the preservation of nature is a task that is incumbent on all of us.
We have a huge responsibility because this planet is in our hands and we're letting it go. It's very clear that the last generations are turning the planet into a much worse world, much worse for the generations that come after us. In other words, living in denial, will not make the problem disappear. So the problem is there. And if we don't stop it, then the situation will become more difficult to reverse.